The rain on Viridian Prime fell in soft silver sheets, misting the reinforced glass of the observation dome. Inside, the air hummed with filtered warmth and the quiet thrum of life support systems. Human outposts on the fringe worlds were sparse, functional, and often lonely. But for one man, stationed far from Earth to monitor xenobotanical anomalies, loneliness had become a familiar companionate till the day the Galactic Accord signed him domestic assistance. Her name was Lyra. She belonged to the Veln, a species known across the quadrant for their grace, discretion, and unmatched skill in household management. Tall and slender, with skin the color of polished moonstone and eyes like liquid amber, she moved through the habitat module with near-silent precision. Her presence was meant to ease the burden of isolation, not complicate it. And for weeks, that's exactly what she did, cooking nutrient-balanced meals, maintaining the environmental controls, and folding laundry with geometric exactness. He never questioned her competence, nor did he suspect she would ever breach protocol. The Veln prided themselves on boundaries, both physical and emotional. They served without intrusion, observed without judgment, and vanished when not needed. That was the understanding, which made what happened all the more jarring. It began as an ordinary evening. The monitoring consoles blinked their usual patterned steady green. No alerts. Outside, the twin moons of Viridian Prime cast overlapping shadows over the alien flora swaying in the windless storm. He had finished his shift early, eaten dinner in silence while Lyra cleaned the kitchen alcove, and then retreated to his private quarters with the data slate tucked under his arm. What he planned to do was simple, personal, and utterly human. He sat cross-legged on the floor, back against the cot, and opened the slate. Not to review reports or scan comms logs, but to watch something from home. A recording. Grainy low resolution, but precious. It showed a small backyard on Earth, sunlight dappling through maple leaves, and a child laughing as she chased soap bubbles. The woman beside her, her mother, smiled with tired eyes and called out, "Don't pop them all at once, sweetheart." His thumb hovered over the play button. He hadn't watched it in months. Too painful. Too bright against the gray monotony of deep space duty. But tonight, the weight of solitude pressed heavier than usual. He needed to remember why he was here, why he'd volunteered for this assignment after the accident, why he kept going. He pressed play. The laughter filled the room, pure, unburdened joy. He closed his eyes, letting the sound wash over him. A tear escaped before he could stop it. Then another. He didn't sob. He just let the quiet grief move through him, shoulders trembling slightly, hands gripping the slate like a lifeline. That was when the door slid open. Lyra stood in the threshold, holding a freshly laundered uniform. She had come to deliver it, as she always did at this hour. Protocol dictated she'd leave it on the chair by the door if he was occupied. But she must have heard the audio, unusual, since personal entertainment was rare in this outpost, and assumed something was wrong. She stepped inside without thinking, and froze. Her luminous eyes widened. Her posture, always so composed, stiffened as if struck by static charge. The uniform slipped from her fingers, landing soundlessly on the floor. She stared not at him but at the slate in his hands, where the child was now blowing a giant bubble that floated lazily toward the camera. For a long moment, neither moved. Then slowly, realization dawned on her face. Not horror, not confusion. Something deeper. Recognition. Humans were known throughout the galaxy for many things: their aggression, their adaptability, their chaotic politics. But few species understood their capacity for sorrow wrapped in tenderness. To the Veln, emotion was regulated, expressed through ritualized gestures and harmonic vocalizations. Grief was channeled through communal resonance chambers, not solitary tears in dim rooms. Yet here was a human being from a species often dismissed as volatile sitting alone, weeping not from pain, but from love. From memory, from the unbearable beauty of something lost. Lyra did not retreat. She did not apologize and flee as protocol might have demanded. Instead, she took one careful step forward, then another, until she stood a respectful distance away. She knelt, not in submission, but in shared stillness. "You miss them," she said, her voice softer than he'd ever heard it. The Velm language had no direct word for miss, so she used the closest approximation. "Your heart reaches for what is beyond your grasp." He nodded, unable to speak. He wiped his face with the back of his hand, embarrassed, but too exhausted to hide it. Lyra tilted her head, studying him as one might study a rare celestial event. "On my world," she began slowly, "we do not keep recordings of those who are gone. We believe it traps their essence in the past, preventing their spirit from joining the great current." He looked up, surprised. "So you forget them?" "No," she said, her amber eyes gleaming. "We carry them in our actions. When I fold a garment with care, I honor my mother's hands. When I prepare food with balance, I echo my brother's patience. Memory is not an image as it is in motion." He stared at the slate, where the video had looped back to the beginning. The child laughed again. His chest tightened. "Maybe," he said hoarsely, "some memories need to be seen, not just lived." Lyra was silent for a long time. Then, unexpectedly, she reached out not for the slate, but for his hand. Her fingers were cool, smooth, and surprisingly strong. She placed his palm flat against his own chest. "Feel that?" she asked. His heartbeat thrummed beneath his ribs. "That is where they live," she said. "Not in the machine. In here, always." He swallowed hard, nodded again. Without another word, Lyra rose, retrieved the uniform, and placed it gently on the cot. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Tomorrow," she said, "I will make tea with Starana's root. It is calming. And I will not knock." A faint smile touched his lips. "Thank you, Lyra." She gave a small, formal bow, one reserved not for employers, but for equals, and left. The door whispering shut behind her. He sat there for a while longer, the video playing on loop. But this time, he didn't cry. He listened. He remembered. And for the first time in months, he didn't feel alone. The next morning, the habitat module smelled of warm spice and something floral, night bloom petals, perhaps gathered from the greenhouse. Lyra had already set 2 cups on the table, steam curling in delicate spirals. She stood by the viewport, watching the rain clear to reveal the first hints of dawn. He joined her without speaking. They drank in silence, the kind that no longer felt empty. Later that week, during a routine maintenance check, he found a small data chip tucked into his toolkit. Curious, he slotted it into the console. It contained a single file, a Velm lullaby recorded in Lyra's voice. The translation note read, "For when the silence grows too loud." He played it that night. The melody was haunting, layered with harmonics that seemed to vibrate in the bones rather than the ears. It didn't erase the ache, but it wrapped around it like a blanket. Over the following cycles, something shifted between them. Not in duties, she still cleaned, cooked, maintained the habitat with flawless efficiency, but in the spaces between tasks. She began leaving small things. A carved stone from her homeworld on his desk. A sprig of luminifern by his pillow, known to promote restful sleep. Once even a hand-stitched patch for his worn-out field jacket. He, in turn, started sharing stories. Not classified ones, but fragments of earth, how fireflies glowed in summer fields. How snow-muffled city sounds. How people gathered under string lights to celebrate nothing and everything at once. Lyra listened intently, her expression unreadable at first, then gradually softening with something akin to wonder. One evening, as they sat watching the twin moons rise, she asked, "Do humans always carry such weight in their hearts?" He thought about it. Not always. But when we love deeply, yes. The loss is part of the love. You can't have one without the other. She considered this, then said quietly, "Perhaps that is why your species builds so much. You build to hold what you've lost. Ships, cities, songs, even outposts like this." He smiled. Maybe. Months passed. The Xenobotanical survey concluded. New orders arrived. Reassignment to a research station near the Helios belt. He would leave. Viridian Prime soon. the night before departure. He found Lyra in the greenhouse, tending to a cluster of bioluminescent vines. She didn't turn as he approached. "I requested transfer," she said, still facing the plants. He blinked. "To where?" "The Helio station has no domestic staff assigned yet." "I submitted my credentials this morning." He stared at her back, stunned. "You'd leave your post?" "Your contract ends here." "My contract," she said, finally turning, "is with you, not the Accord." He didn't know what to say. The Velen did not make such declarations lightly. Personal bonds were rare, deliberate, and lifelong. "I don't deserve that," he said finally. "No," she agreed, stepping closer. "But you need it. And I choose it." In that moment, he understood. This wasn't service. It was kinship. The next day, as their transport lifted off from Viridian Prime, he looked out the viewport at the shrinking world below. Beside him, Lyra stood with her hands clasped, calm as ever. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the data slate. Without hesitation, he deleted the video file. Lyra glanced at him, questioning. "It's okay," he said, meeting her gaze. "I don't need to see it anymore. I carry it now," she nodded, once emplaced.